Welcome. Today I'm going to render a presentation on the case analysis for Columbia's final mission. This assignment is part of the UMass Dartmouth POL 510 Public Management Curriculum Requirements. The presentation will illustrate, from my perspective, what transpired on Columbia's final mission, ascertain the technical and organizational issues that are believed to have contributed to the misfortune of the mission, and to discuss to the extent to which this disaster was the result of the shortcomings of the mission management team and/or due to a larger set of problems within the organization and its culture. It will be concluded with potential recommended actions that are believed can be taken to ensure that the missteps that led to this tragedy do not materialize again. I would like to begin by providing a brief overview of the launch of what was later known as Columbia's final mission. This launch occurred at 10:39 a.m. on Thursday, January 16, 2003. On this day, it was believed that this shuttle was to complete a 17-day space mission to conduct and accomplish several microgravitational experiments. On February 1, 2003, however, a tragic loss occurred upon re-entrance into the Earth's atmosphere. The loss of the NASA Space Shuttle Columbia, along with its entire crew. This tragedy was unearthed to be due to the resultant damage that occurred from a foam strike. This strike was reported, foam shedding observed from the external tank, 81 seconds subsequent to launch. It was classified as being out of family, which essentially meant that operation or performance beyond the anticipated performance range for a given parameter, or which has not previously been experienced. However, as depicted here, foam strikes were found to have occurred on several previous flights. A report on the resulting damage from the foam strike to the Columbia Space Shuttle was issued by the Inter-Center Photo Working Group and was found to consist of wing damage, which inevitably led to the demise of this mission. The management in charge of this mission appeared to be that of a centralized operation, where it for all intents and purposes ought to have been operated as a decentralized one. All of the information obtained with respect to this mission flowed to the director, with the operation being rule and protocol oriented. A flight readiness review was conducted for this and all missions by several different individuals with various technical expertise. The purpose of these review meetings was to discuss somewhere in the magnitude of 3,000 issues. However, approximately 2,500 of these issues were said to have been discussed or at least considered, during the previous mission reviews, making the review meeting sound bureaucratic. The organizational structure and culture could unequivocally be attributed to the failures of this mission. Organizational culture is defined as the beliefs, principles, shared assumptions, and values that contribute to the distinctive social and psychological environment of a business. The culture within NASA displayed engineers and managers that were a bit too assured in their views, positions, and decision-making. The organization was bureaucratic in nature, with members concerned of the constant rules, regulations, and protocol, rather than that of ensuring essential safety measures and protocol be implemented, which should have been of paramount importance. However, program managers were feeling schedule pressure and pressure to conduct a triumphant schedule of flights. The lack of investment in safety measures exhibited also could have been construed to the time and financial pressures being faced by NASA. It was well documented in the Harvard Business Publishing Education case study regarding this mission that NASA was under an enormous amount of pressure and budgetary reductions, which produced the consequent lack of resources, authority, autonomy, and personnel that was plainly evident. Also of significance was the fear by NASA managers and personnel that certain decision-making could potentially jeopardize or have undesirable results with respect to their employment or professional standing. With that being said, there should have been a structure in place to allow members to circumvent this bureaucracy and hierarchy in order to voice any potential concerns, thereby affording an opportunity to avoid any unfortunate occurrences or repercussions. This bureaucracy should also have been allowed to be circumvented with respect to supporting data and report requests by team members, thereby affording the allowance of informed decision-making. Upper management should welcome ideas from their staff and provide them with the necessary resources to enable them to make and share their visions, beliefs, and knowledge. This issue of the foam strike that occurred should have been considered and handled as if it were an anomaly, which within the realm of the space system is a technical term to describe something that has happened that should not have. In this case, foam shedding would have been considered an anomaly for which should have been dealt with via a formal procedure to bring forth a prompt resolve. It was instead deemed a maintenance issue and to some extent dismissed as it was thought that nothing could have been done to remedy it at that point, and was said to have been occurring since the initial flight of the Columbia shuttle back in 1981. There was little concern expressed about this matter, almost as if it were expected because of the previous instances of occurrence. The United Space Alliance manager had submitted a request for imagery with the Department of Defense in response to various employees' concerns. However, this request was never granted. The mission management believed that the tile damage should be considered a maintenance concern rather than one of safety, and therefore imagery of the shuttle's damaged left wing would not be necessary. Therefore, a call was placed to the Department of Defense to cancel said request. But why did the management team believe that it was a mere maintenance issue? Views of the strike area acquired preceding and subsequent to the strike were examined to ascertain the extent of the wing damage. However, the imagery was deemed inadequate to yield sound and definitive conclusive results. So why wouldn't this request for additional review be granted? The Debris Assessment Group, which was comprised of approximately 34 engineers, was chartered to examine the foam strike concern. However, they appeared ambiguous, as really unclear as to exactly who they were to report to. One of the members of this assessment team defined the strike as a maintenance problem. His office was located on the manager's level of the building. His citing became later construed as potentially problematic. It was learned that he had several informal meetings with the managers stating his beliefs on this matter. This was reportedly the source of information for the management director mission, who inevitably dismissed this request for further analysis and imagery. These meetings could be construed as one of the reasons, if not the sole reason, as to why the request for imagery was not obliged. It clearly can be discerned that there were some significant management issues present. A definite risk of foam strikes per the history of the Columbia shuttle existed. However, this issue was never addressed. When additional imagery regarding the foam strike that occurred on this mission was requested, management took the stance that it was a maintenance issue and shelved the idea. There was clearly ineffective leadership in place to ensure that the mission was on track and completed, while at the same time protecting the safety of the crew members. There existed an uncommunicativeness with respect to the organizational safety measures that should have been adhered to. No one spoke to this issue, thereby declaring the issue null and void. By all accounts, there was also a significant lack of communication within the organization. In looking at the debris assessment team, there existed a lack of reporting channels and well-defined processes. It appeared that the management techniques that were in place almost discouraged unrestricted dialogue, communication, and ejected non-conforming assessments on issues with respect to safety. The managers of the mission appeared to have been comfortable and complacent with the fact that the shuttle exhibited some defects. But by discounting these shortcomings, these managers did not distinguish and act on the safety issue that occurred on this mission, which resulted in devastation. The demise of Columbia's final mission was not the resultant of one mere issue, but rather several complex issues playing a role in this misfortune, albeit safety, organizational and cultural structure, lack of leadership, budgetary and time constraints, and communication issues. Going forward, there are various factors that can be addressed to attempt to avoid a tragedy such as this in the future. With respect to safety, it must be held to be of vital importance, with the NASA organization cognizant of being vigilant to identify potential safety concerns. Moreover, if concerns are detected, they should be voiced and mitigated in a proactive, responsive, and suitable manner. The organizational and cultural structure failures that existed within NASA also necessitates reform and restructure. The blueprint of shared values within the organization comprises its organizational culture. The entrenched bureaucracy found to be apparent within NASA did not lend itself to this type of environment. Therefore, transformation must transpire. To encourage change in reference to said organization and cultural issues, reorganization and leadership improvements must ensue. The structure needs to be leveled out. NASA needs to address the cultural issues present through vastly improved leadership. Clear, defined, and attainable goals need to be set, with well-defined tasks delegated out to ensure a clear-cut path with which one can set goals. The allocated resources at NASA's disposal need to be utilized efficiently and not be expended frivolously or misused, especially considering the many budgetary cuts that this organization has realized to date. Speaking to the budgetary and time constraints, with the many political and budgetary decisions that NASA had realized and endured, they became an entity with numerous mandates in reference to cost, efficiency, schedule, and the like. They were driven and under intense pressure to produce and meet scheduling and technical deadlines in order to ensure funding be appropriated. These pressures could have, at least in part, led to NASA's display of safety protocol leniency. In reference to communication deficiencies, this could be thought of as one of the primary sources of failure. The mission relied heavily on informal emails as one of the principal communication modes to discuss and address the foam strike safety issue that they were confronted with. This resulted in several emails incorporating a limited number of participants, where it really should have been presented to a grander audience to include upper management, so that all parties could be a contributor to the information, and not merely a few included on the various small snippets of the conversation and supporting information, thereby affording in turn their feedback. This would advocate a more holistic problem-solving approach. It is believed that management who regularly interact and openly communicate with their employees construct robust relationships, which as a result can lead to organizational goal actualization and accomplishment. Conversely, this concept of ineffective communication that has been found to exist and be a recurring problem for the NASA organization can readily be discernible via a number of risks improperly identified and reported. As noted by Rainey, one-way communication, distorted perceptions, listening deficiencies, errors of abstraction, and lack of congruence can all act as barriers to effective communication. The equipment utilized with respect to these space missions is extremely complex, can exhibit a spectrum of technical deficiencies, and present many technical issues, such as was the case here with Columbia's final mission. As stated herein, however, the technical and safety issue that was experienced as part of this mission could not be construed or deemed to be the only mechanism responsible for the demise of this mission. It was much more systemic and multifaceted, which collectively must be addressed and are implemented in order to diminish the likelihood that an impending accident such as this from materializing in the future. This is the end of the presentation. Thank you for your time.